This is episode number 411 of WP Watercooler. WordPress 5.9. We've only just begun.
Put a bird on it. Oh yeah. We're
definitely going to put a bird on things. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on Twitter.
Put a bird on it. Put a bird on it.
Steve Zehngut, he's not here.
Where is he?
He's on assignment.
He collected a lot of birds.
Hey, I'm Sarah Reed. I make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress at Favorite Media on all the things.
And y'all know who it is. It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mullenweg, back at it again on the world's most influential WordPress podcast.
Zing!
And if you like that podcast, you can get a shirt with our names on it. Go over to WPwatercooler.com/store to buy that shirt.
Merch.
It doesn't have a bird on it.
Merch.
What? You can leave us a review. Go over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And just type in there. Just say, like, you know, hey, I really love your show.
What you really, really want.
Awesome. It'd be great.
Tell us what you want. Wait, I shouldn't sing that. We're going to, like, get, like, copyright takedown notices.
I don't know.
What you really, really want.
5-star ratings only.
Right.
I got to tell you, though, tell us what you want. What you really, really want is a great lead-in for all of my opinions on 5.9. So I unexpectedly did that. So, but it's fate or kismet. Whatever you want to call it. Kismet? Not a kismet.
Okay.
What? Matt Mullenweg is everywhere.
Did we just figure out that a kismet and kismet?
I never really put that together before. So it's not kismet? Okay, we can go into that another time.
Yeah, so 5.9.
5.9 is in the house and in the computers.
Mm-hmm.
I want to preface everything I say today by dropping my pen. No, by letting the contributors and the community of WordPress know that I appreciate all of the work that the contributors, the volunteers, the sponsored contributors, the core team, literally everyone, almost everyone's effort making WordPress. And none of what I say in terms of what I hope is constructive criticism should diminish that whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Disclaimer.
Sure.
I think the thing is, like, our job here is to have an opinion on this sort of stuff, and we're going to share that opinion on this sort of stuff. We don't have folks that are telling us, hey, you shouldn't really talk about that. We're going to talk about it because we use this product just like everybody else does, and it's a community effort. We totally get it's a community effort.
But none of us like Kool-Aid, so that's just not really a thing we like here.
No.
We like water straight. Not the Kool-Aid cooler. Anyway.
Yeah, I shouldn't really drink Kool-Aid. I have the sugars.
Yeah,
so.
don't drink the Kool-Aid. We're water cooler, not
Right.
Kool-Aid cooler. All right, so who's going first? Or what are we handling first? I
feel like Tucker has some opinions.
I have some opinions.
That idea.
I have some opinions, but some of my opinions had to do with the fact that I started this during the nightlies. So I was using the nightlies leading up to launch, and man, there was some stuff that was just broken.
Sure.
that I was running into.
Is it no longer broken? Or
menus are still funky. Like menus are still funky. Like so for instance, I would go and click up on the menu in Full Site Editor, and when I would click on that, it would kick me out and take me over to the dashboard where there was a new custom post type that I didn't know existed called navigation. And there was my navigation, but I would edit it and there's no way to edit anything in there. And I was like, why does this exist? Like, what's going on here? Come to find out, they are transitioning all this stuff over from the way that menus were stored before into custom post types. And then they're going to use that to kind of build it all out. But it just, the infrastructure is not built for it yet. And I think I found like a way of getting around the curtain and going like, what's this for?
So here's my, the navigation block is like its whole own world, and we should probably do an entire episode on it because just to let everyone, can I tease everyone with what our plans for the next coming up couple of weeks?
Yeah, please.
The changes to the editor are fantastic. Thanks, Daryl. We are going to, over the next couple of weeks, do a deep dive into each of the various features of 5.9. So because, the format of our show is short and punchy and quick, right? We're going to talk about 5.9 generally today, and then deep dive into its different various and deep and important and significant features and functionality changes.
Sure.
And whatnot. So I don't want to get too crazy on all of these different things because the navigation block is like its whole own world. But what you said about the nightlies and the builds is something that I wanted to mention because I was talking to Cosper?
I was going to say, I feel like we need to, I feel like I need to take the Steve chair for a second and clarify.
Read it out of Wikipedia for this one.
No, that no Wikipedia, but what we're discussing really today is the full site editing that was introduced in WordPress 5.9.
Oh, no, we're talking about 5.9, not just full site editing.
Well, okay, but we're kind of we're talking about. We're kind of talking about everything, but like, okay, so the navigation.
This is why Cosper was late to the pre-show today because he was busy explaining to people how to do things properly. Just his job. So we didn't get a chance to work this out.
Sure.
But, I do want to continue with my point, but you can make your point. Okay.
Go ahead.
So here's the point I was trying to make. So Tucker's, the couple days before the release, right, which ostensibly is not that far away from an actual full release with a lot of changes. And what you're saying is that the nightlies were changing so rapidly that things were broken, things were half done, and you genuinely couldn't even keep up with what was happening. And we're talking about that a few days before the release. I also was on Twitter. I was on Twitter, obviously. But I was talking on Twitter with Courtney Robertson, who is doing a lot of the training materials for and leading the Learn team for co-leading as a sponsored contributor from GoDaddy. And we were talking about all of the work she was putting in to release documentation and how-tos with this release of 5.9. She told me she was working 80 hours a week for the last couple of weeks. And only part of that is compensated by her employer. So it's only part of that time is sponsored. So she's giving herself, which is an amazing thing, right? And, a lot of the core contributors who are writing this code are sponsored. But it is a problem to me. It looks like a problem organizationally that a week before code comes out that is going out to, in theory, could be updated on 43% of the web, that this is not an update. This is not a program that we should be making changes to like that right up to the deadline. This doesn't seem right to me. This seems dangerous almost even, but for sure it seems like a direct route to burnout. So everyone's talking about, why are the contributors burnt out? Why can't we get people to, come collaborate? That's why. And it's a problem. This is a problem. It's a recurring problem. Yeah. It's an ongoing problem, and it's a problem. So
there was a proposal from Josephine yesterday that discussed having just 2 more releases in 2022, which is I remember at State of the Word,
one less than the 4 that they have been planning on. So I mean,
right. I was going to say at State of the Word, Matt talked like 4. But 6.0, I think they were targeting for May, and then 6.1 in October. Normally, there's a release sometime around Christmas, which I have
worked out every year that happens.
Right. I've never been able to stand that. I know that a lot of hosts, especially managed WordPress hosts, will hold off until the new year to roll out the next version of WordPress to customers who wish to upgrade, because they're like, nope, we're not messing with anything. Like, you can stay on what you've been using. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So, well, anyway, that post by Josephine, which we can link to, is obviously speaks to that greater problem. And I think that, bringing down the releases will help in theory. But I think there's more of a systemic problem. And I think it's a problem for 5.9 because if things are getting changed literally days and hours before this goes out, that means the plugin developers can't test stuff, the theme developers can't test stuff, the users can't test stuff. So I ask, is that actually ready? Even if the features are working? And
Right.
I want to talk about whether or not the features are actually working, because are they? Because they're not all working. They're, the basics are there. But I think I really think there needs to be a fundamental reset of the process that's happening here. And it's not just about the release schedule. It's really about, the documentation and all of that. So there's a lot.
Right.
Anyway,
Well,
that's my big, there's a lot of takeaways from 5.9, but this one is the one that I think is the most systemically, community-wise, systemically problematic because people are just burned out. And
yeah,
there's not a whole influx of new people because there's all the new skills that are required. So everyone who's already been in the community, doesn't necessarily can't just like pinch hit for everybody. So it's just,
right.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on the contributor and the build component, the core component that we're talking about. So that's not talking about any function.
On my side, it came down to like not using the block editor ever. Because every time I'd use the block editor back, when we just called it Gutenberg, it always broke. And I'd get these like JavaScript errors that I'm just like, what is this? And now the JavaScript errors are essentially turned into a thing where it says like, do you want me to try to recover from this thing that you may or may not have done on your own? And it's like, it's just JavaScript. It seems like JavaScript's very like frail. Like there's some things that you could touch on accident and it just breaks it. And the other thing is we talked about this in the past, is that you have other people's code bases trying to work with one another in real time through the DOM. And if things change and something breaks, everyone's JavaScript breaks. And now you're going into console going like, okay, what broke? Well, I didn't learn JavaScript deeply. So now I'm trying to figure out like what actually broke.
Well, and what that causes is if we're sitting here, and I want to talk about the about page in 5.9, but if we're telling people, hey, you can update your thing, here's this new theme, go do this, saying it like that, and then they go in there and they're breaking their site and it's confusing, that is bad. That is a bad user experience. We should not be like, oh, well, it kind of works. They won't click on that button. Like, what the heck? Like, this is like, again, I'm not shading the contributors. I'm saying maybe we're trying to cram too much stuff into every release. Maybe the release, whatever. I don't want to get too far into talking about that, but that's a big, it's a problem. You can't go telling people you can do this and then they can't. Like, it's bad. It's bad user experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very close to how, shockingly similar to how Gutenberg was integrated in WordPress 5.0.
Yeah, they're like, this is done and broken, but here you go.
Yeah, it's in a. I mean, it'll get better, and that was 5.0, and here we are at 5.9. It's getting better. Like Jason said, like every time you would use it, it wasn't great. I mean, you Jason, you still have the classic editor installed on some of your stuff, right?
Yeah, on some of my sites, I'm still using the classic editor and just trying to block as much of it as possible. But I did pick like my simplest site, which is also my oldest site, which is my personal website. And then the other one was a copy of WPwatercooler that I wanted to kind of figure out and see what I can actually do with it.
So I have not, I do not usually update my client sites until we're at a .1.2 release, just because why go through that hassle? If you're going to
listen to Steve.
Yeah, no, I just, don't do it because it's I have to bill them for doing stuff repeatedly and it's a bad plan. Plus stuff breaks. And I have not tested any of my large scale, super complicated integrated sites with 5.9. But I did try to test my own site, and this is not even a site, it's my own company site anymore. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do my update, whatever. And I have literally every 20 whatever theme set up. I have 2011, 21. It's like my little repository, 20 default themes. You can't live preview 2022. You can only activate it.
Yeah, they did mention that.
Like, why are we regressing? Why are we taking away features? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sitting there, I'm like, look, I can test it on 2021, 22. I like triple checked because I was like, wait, is it in, where's the live preview button? I must be missing it. No, it's not there.
Broke.
So I literally cannot test this. I can't even just click to see what it's going to be unless I make it live on my site.
Yeah.
So that means I have to do, and this is a site, it's live, whatever. I would do changes on it because no one's going there. It's not a big deal. But like, I'm not just going to annihilate it. And then what happens if you switch back? Haven't done that either. So now I have to do a local install and set that up to test it. Like, this is that's not user friendly. And so the about page, which I wanted to talk about, which is like, hey, full site editing is here. You can change your stuff. Trumpeting that message to every user that updates.
Right.
And then what are they supposed to do with that? Just go change their theme?
Yeah. 3 different types of themes, 3 different types of ways that it approaches this whole thing. I know. And I had people on Facebook, in my personal Facebook page, that I posted just saying like, hey, I do WordPress. We got an update that's coming out. Ask me anything. And some of the folks in there were just like, if I change this, is it going to give me full site editing? I'm like, no. Like you're running Genesis. Like it's not going to do anything for you.
Anyone. And I actually tweeted back and forth with Courtney Courtney Robertson, a little bit about this. And she said she would give my feedback to the marketing team, which I'm sure she did, because she's a very competent and gets back to you kind of person. But the whole about page is like written to users, written for like, here's your new stuff. This is here. There was a little bit, it looked like the language was tweaked a little to say, oh, by the way, you have to activate this theme. But the way that it's being presented ignores completely the diverse use of WordPress sites across the freaking globe. Like, not everyone has just a blog. Like, what are you telling people? Why are we telling people to just go change this? There's like less than 50 themes that are very bare minimum in the theme editor. And I just don't think that the leadership, well, actually, I have a theory for this, but the leadership does not understand how, and whoever's making the roadmap, Matt, does not understand how people are using their sites and how these sites are used, because they're only looking at it, in my view, through WordPress.com lens. And those users are really different than the WordPress.org users, because they're generally people who have someone doing their site for them, some marketing team running them. They're just updating content. If they see that update screen, they're going to be very confused.
Yeah,
so
because they were. Even people in the know were confused.
Yeah. So if we're confused and we're like, this is weird, why I'm over here looking for a live preview button that has been part of WordPress for like, what, a decade? And now it's just not there. Like, and
it kept getting better. That live preview button kept getting better, but the way that it's being displayed in iframes, and I was reading the whole docs on it. It just, I get it.
I mean, and then the customizer is just not there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no fan of the customizer. It was a shoddy solution, in my opinion, to the theme option panels of yesterday. Literally 10 years ago when the customizer came out. But it's been there for 10 years. And now you're just like, hey, go switch it. And there's actually a block in the about page that says, you won't have the customizer anymore, but you won't need it because you got the site editor. Like, what do you think people are doing with their websites? Just spending all day on their websites, like figuring it out? There's such a disconnect.
I did.
I'm saying that. Like, there is such a disconnect. I know you did. Oh, am I frozen? What's happening?
I don't know.
I don't either.
We're good. We're back.
Okay. The computer was like, "Say you're losing your cool."
Cosper, we talked a lot. What do you have to say regarding this?
So much like Jim, most of my sites were automatically updated to 5.9. Mine too.
Yeah.
Because a number of my sites, they just didn't need to be updated, or I wasn't really super worried about if they were updated or not. I knew that I had classic themes in most of the sites that had classic themes, and I knew that the sites that I actually have been like playing around with full site editing, that things were mostly fine. I'm not doing anything super complex. So I updated, I built 2 new sites off the full site editor, like non-legacy sites. I see the appeal of it. I actually never got, unlike I know both you and Say, you like Beaver Builder, and Say is, I know she's not here, but I feel like I remember her saying she's a Divi fan. And I never got into the page builders. I never liked the weight that they added to my actual pages. And so I really, and Say's back.
I heard everything you said. I was just weirdly in some purgatory.
Yeah, that happened to me for a second too. I don't know if it's StreamYard or what.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The internet's mad at us. 42%
Sure.
of the internet's like,
Sure.
But anyway, sorry. Page builders, please go on.
Yeah. So I never got into page builders, and I really, I see where things are going with the full site editor. I feel like I know that they needed to ship something, and they needed to show things off, and they needed to, I don't necessarily agree with the rollout that they've done. But I know that it's just going to keep getting better, and it's we're kind of going through like the awkward teenage phase right now.
We've
like
been
WordPress...
going through the awkward teenage phase since Gutenberg. It's a long freaking teenage phase. I would like us to be in our 20s and in college now, please, because there's a little dirty going on here, and then we can ditch class properly. Oh, sorry. Go on, please.
Yeah. No, but I mean, outside of that, Tucker, I know that on your personal site, were you using Beaver Builder on that before?
Yeah, that was using Beaver Builder.
And what was you sent me privately like some GT metrics tests?
Yeah.
And you said the GT metrics test for your site on Beaver Builder, no shade to Beaver Builder,
D minus usually. That's what I was usually getting, D or D minus.
Right. And what was your grade with the Gutenbergified JasonTucker.blog?
I think it was A minus. Like the amount of JavaScript that it doesn't load now is just insane.
I mean, I want to be clear. I have used Divi. I used to build my own themes before it was useless and much more economical for my clients to use pre-made stuff.
Sure.
So I see where this is going. And like, I was happy about Gutenberg. You can check the tape. I was like, we need columns, we need to put.
We even laughed at your columns thing.
Yeah. But come on, we need it. And I have been using Gutenberg on, for posts specifically, and some pages on a variety of sites. But it obviously hasn't been able to do the complex stuff without getting into, actual theming, like custom theming, not just child theming, like full theming. I see where it's going, right? Like I understand where it's going. I am not opposed to where it's going. And even though I think that terms like site navigation, core site functionality, all of these things, they scare the heck out of users. Those are not terms. Those are all terms from the About page again. Those are not terms that the users want to even hear. Like core site functionality is going to make people like scream. They're like, I don't know what that is. I gotta go. So anyway, I understand where it's going, but it is basically ignoring the community, what the community wants in the interim. And it's just like, bear with us. We're going to get here. And in the meantime, people like me are like, okay, well, I haven't stopped building websites for people over the past year or two, or since Gutenberg, right? Like, and we've talked about this before, like, do I make it in a completely not ready to build complex sites like basic full site editor and make a theme or whatnot, or do I stick with the existing workflow that is
Right.
to use ACF properly and is super custom and that my clients are trained on and understand how to use? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
I can't, and I was actually seeing a lot of this in comments yesterday too. You can't experiment with your clients, right? So the push to like developers to switch and like the surprise, for example, on WP Tavern, there was a team member who was like surprised, like, why aren't people getting into this? And it's like, we're using it. We're making like clients' websites with it. We don't have time
Right.
to experiment. Like we're experimenting, but we don't have time to experiment with actual client sites and, like building these brand new things. It's going to take a while for that stuff to catch up because it wasn't even ready when Tucker started doing it on Monday. Like,
Yep.
so why
Yep.
would we experiment or put the time into doing that if it's not ready? And like,
Yeah.
Don't experiment with your paycheck.
No.
you can't. And so like,
No. And I have a paycheck website that I need to deal with at some point that needs to have this.
right.
And I took my most complicated site, which is WPwatercooler, because it has advanced custom field stuff in it. That's as complicated as I've gotten, and use that as my way of testing it. But I think one of the things that I'm a Beaver Builder convert, just like a few of the folks in the chat are saying as well. And for me, it's like, I know that Beaver Builder had tons of JavaScript that it loads all the time to make the site slower, but that JavaScript was helpful in some of the things that I'm trying to do in full site editor, which is like, I want to change the padding. I want to change the margins. I want to change but I want to do it everywhere. Not only if the block had it in there.
Like inline
so,
styles nightmare. Like,
so the thing that kind of ticks me off, and I was exploring this in one of my blog posts, and it was fun because I actually got to like go back and rewrite some of the things that I wrote and all that, is that I feel like that there was a lack of framework that was built that said like, hey, here's like the fundamentals in this framework. You can now use these fundamentals in this framework to build the things that you need. If you need padding, if you need margins, if you need spacing on the top and the bottom, like whatever those like pieces are that are basic CSS things that we all have to do. It doesn't seem like those were like given to the developer as like, here, we want to be consistent. Where when I look at stuff like Divi and Beaver Builder, it seems like a lot of those things were already given to them. Yeah. Including advanced custom fields functionality, having that all built in. It was an expectation that you can click on a thing and it would automatically fill in the piece and make it all show up, and it would do the magic on the back end for them. But instead, developers are having to rebuild like entire universes
to literally entire universes into blocks. Yeah. Like it's going to take a while.
Which is why like each one of these block collections are totally different from each other.
If only friend of the show Scott Kingsley Clark managed to get the Fields API into place those years ago when he was working on it, then we wouldn't be running into these problems now.
I agree.
This is my main takeaway actually from this is like the 5.9 is solving problems that we do not have. 5.9 is solving problems for WordPress.com's users. 5.9 is not solving, and the roadmap is not solving the problems that have existed, like with the freaking API endpoints and like everything that have existed already. And so the gap between what we're building for and who's using it is widening. And it doesn't make any sense to me. Like it needs to come together. And so just this disconnect, this widening gap of who's using WordPress and who's making WordPress, this is my main concern. And I'm hoping that, there'll be less shouting at the void because I'm going to hopefully be able to get back involved in stuff. But so many people have become burnt out by shouting into the void that like, the only people left are people who are new and coming on board and being like, sure, this is what we're doing. It's great. And so I'm just a little concerned. That's all.
I think this is hard for the three of us, especially because WordPress up until recently, has always been about the backwards compatibility. There's still stuff there that if you use classic themes, you're going to be fine for the foreseeable future. However, I mean, they just extended the the time before they managed to kill the classic editor plugin, right?
Right.
Wow.
So we're going to have a little while to hold on to the old way of doing things. But WordPress has always been about backwards compatibility. And right now, shit's breaking left and right.
It's not just about backwards compatibility. We're not building a bridge to get from the back. Like, it's fine. Let's move forward. Let's bring everyone forward. But we're just skipping. We're jumping and skipping and leaving all of the like a lot of the community, a lot of what people want, a lot of what developers and the ecosystem have been talking about for years. And we're just being like, whatever, we got the new. We don't care about what you got going on.
We've been spoiled by backwards compatibility up to this point. I think that you look at projects like Drupal, Joomla, etc., and you see like how much things break for them. I'm not saying that this is a good thing, and I'm looking forward to the future. Like, I still have like a leery eye on everything. However, at least they're still supporting the old stuff. But yes, say absolutely there needs to be more of a bridge built.
Let's build the bridge, because I'm not against the future. I just, we just need to not be so myopic.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Take
let's
off
build the
the
bridge.
Band-Aid.
Let's put a bird on it. And here's
Visual
our outro.
gag for those of you listening on a podcast.
Sorry about that, Say.
That's all right.
Oh, go to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe.
Subscribe.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and if you're watching us, you can watch us on YouTube. Talk to y'all later. You have a good one. Bye-bye.
We're following you.